Your airplane mode.
Okay. Well, good evening, good afternoon, good morning to everyone. I always say that because my guests come from different parts of the world. And today I have Dr. Sharnael Wolverton Sehon, and you are in USA, yes?
Yes.
And so there is a 6 hour difference. I think when I contacted her first, I thought, oh, it's 5 hours, but no, it's 6 hours. So whilst it's just gone 5 o'clock, 6 minutes past five here, it's 6 minutes past 11 in the morning where you are.
Yes.
So afternoon, good morning. So as usual, my programs are about my guest's journey and how they came across their spiritualism, maybe from childhood, maybe from teenager, whatever happened in their life that caused them probably to make a turn. And it's about us all hearing the different genres there are to help us in our spiritual journey. So without too much ado, Sharnael, welcome.
Hi, how are you? Very, very happy to be with you and love your show. Love you. Your son is awesome and cool as well. And I met you through him. And yeah, I'm really excited to be with you today.
Okay, so let's begin from the beginning. How did your journey start? What happened? Did it start from youth, childhood, or what?
Yeah,
Explain.
I think I had an encounter when I was really young and I was around 5 or 6 in and I was living in Montana at my grandmother's house, and it was happened to be Easter Sunday, and I had this crazy spiritual encounter. And I think that in combination with being where we lived, if anyone's familiar with Montana, you could drive for hours and not see like another building or another house. It was a very, very small town that was the closest town to me, was like 40 miles away. And again, not seeing another gas station, not seeing a tree, not seeing a building or a house like in between. So I grew up on like 3,000 acres and was just alone a lot. And so I was just, it was huge, beautiful nature, sky, there with animals and
Nature, lovely
yeah,
connection.
yes. And so I think, just having time to integrate different things and, tapping into my intuition, being with animals and taming animals that were feral. I was like really good with kittens specifically that would be in the barn, or like horses, dogs, like all of that. And just really just felt connected even more to animals than I did to people probably. But yeah, and definitely to God, because when I'm, God's within us, right? And to me, anyway, my path is God is in here. And so a lot of opportunity to connect with that inner voice and just hearing God's voice and getting to know who that is and getting to know myself.
Chanel, I've lost you. Okay, sorry. In between there was a blip, but I'm not going to stop and start again. When you were saying about kittens, it's the internet connection. Don't worry. When you were saying about kittens, um, could you take it from there, please?
Yes, sorry. A lot of alone time with animals, and I raised a lot of kittens that were feral or wild, and then I would tame them,
Breathe.
and it would take out weeks and times to be able to get them to trust me. And so spending a lot of time with animals and trying to think the way they do, but also just being alone. When I was alone a lot, I was the oldest child and there was no other kid at the time, and just getting to know myself and getting, hearing that inner voice and intuition and trusting intuition and, just, you know what I mean? Like nature, God, myself, a lot of time to really
Yes.
know me better.
Yeah. Okay. Um, at the beginning, you said you had an encounter when you were quite young. How old were you, and what was this encounter?
Yeah, I was like 5 years old. Um, And it was Sunday morning, and I went upstairs to go grab something out of my room. I don't even remember. And literally there was like this, almost like a hologram of this iridescent um light of the frame of a man, um who I now know is Jesus or Yeshua, or I guess people have different names for him. But I didn't even know who it was until second grade. I went to school, and there was a teacher that had like this person figure structure. It wasn't like black or white or whatever. It was like bronze structure, but the
Yeah,
hair and the beard thing, I was like, oh, I know that guy looks familiar. And I asked, who is that? And she said Jesus. And we know that he wasn't called Jesus. I mean, the scriptures call him Jesus, but his name was Yeshua in real life. And but yeah, so
Yeshua.
that's,
Mm.
yes, ma'am.
And that
So
was
yeah,
at the age. That was at the age of 5.
yeah, I was either 5 or 6, very young.
Okay.
I say that I had just moved from New York to back to live to Montana, because my dad was a military, so he would be gone a lot, and we would just move back to with my grandparents. And all I know is when it happened, I felt this immense love that I'd never experienced before. I could feel it in my body, like every cell in my body felt like it was vibrating and
Yeah.
just buzzing. I felt like buzzed, and felt really emotional. And all I can remember is just thinking how much he loved me. Like I never felt so much love from something, including my
Yeah.
own parents. Yeah. And it,
Was there, were there things going on at the time that maybe, because as you say, you felt this intense love, um, and was there anything going on at the time at that age? Were you sad, or was it anything that you think may have drawn this hologram to you?
you know, that's a good question. I've never really thought about why, but my dad was gone a lot. Sometimes he'd be gone a year here, a year and a half there, 9 months here, 6 months there. And he was on one of those times away. And also, I had a really strange birth, even like my mom got my name in a dream.
Yeah.
Sharnael, now I know, means warrior and rose of God. Um, I was the doctor who delivered me is Dr. Harold Messenger, which,
Ah,
toot, toot, you know,
yes.
yeah, I was born at 3:33. There's just a lot of weird things even about my birth that were really different. So I don't, I choose to know, but I've had experiences with this now over the years, and I continually have these experiences. So it may just be a part of what my DNA is about, or like, I think that all of us have a cellular or and even ancestral packet of certain giftings and activities. I mean, you walk in such a wisdom package that is, and love, like you carry love really well. Like when you have sent me your voice messages, I cry almost every time because you carry that same love. Both you and Eli have that. And like
Okay.
it's very extraordinary. And but when you see it and you feel it, you know it. And so I recognize that in you guys, and not everybody has that. But so I don't know. And I was telling Eli, like, in a strange way, even though we just met, I feel like I'm remembering you, or that somehow you're a part of my family in
Yeah.
a weird way,
Maybe,
and
maybe from a past lifetime, because we
who knows?
come maybe with the same people but playing different roles.
Yes.
Okay, so as you got older, what things happened to you?
Yeah, I mean, I've had a couple strange beings that came to me once during another really rough time. And also she's come, there's one that looks like a man and one that looks like a female, and the man looks more like Asian descent, actually, if I was gonna pick. And the woman looks very like Scandinavian, like tall. They're both extremely like 14 feet tall.
Oh,
Uh, they're huge. And they have like pastel Easter color iridescent lights that flow in and out. That's like you can't touch. You uh,
you go
I
through
tried.
them.
Yes.
Your hands just go through them.
Yes. And I used to long for them to be here, and now I've realized like they're here all the time. It's just like maybe my spectrum of light eyes don't always see them, but sometimes I'll hear her talking to me. Like she came to me when I was pregnant and said, "Hey, you're pregnant." And she was standing at the end of the bed, and it scared me because I hadn't seen her, and she just, when she pops in, it's always terrifying at first, but she said, "It's okay, I'm here to help." And so I tried to wake up my former husband at the time and just said, "Hey, this happened again," and told him, I said, she says I'm pregnant. And he was like, he kind of made like rolled his eyes or was like, "Oh no," or something. And I said, "No, they said they're here to help." And he said, "Well, they better," because we had like 2 kids already. And but my oldest daughter has seen them as well. Like even when she was like 3 years old, she would talk about the Birdman, and
The
she just would,
Birdman.
because they had wings.
Okay. Were they both male or male and female?
With her, she would always say the Birdman. So she never talked about a woman,
Okay.
but with it was one man and one woman, and mine did not have wings, so I don't know, but but she would talk about the Birdman.
Okay. Interesting. And that's when your daughter was about what, 3 years old?
3 years old. And one time, I mean, and my husband at the time did not believe in it at all. He just thought I was crazy. But when she started talking about it, a matter of fact, that time when she came to tell me I was pregnant, I went back to sleep. And that day we took her to school. And when she came home from school, she had a little coloring book that she had ripped out a page. And she had colored this picture to bring it home to me. You know how like little kids do. And it was a picture of this
Yeah.
angel. I don't know if you've heard of Precious Moments, but it's a thing here in the States and maybe overseas. But it's
Yeah.
these little angel
Yes, I have.
statues. And it was a picture of an angel pushing a stroller with a baby. And she told me, "Hey, mommy, I made this for you." She said, "You're pregnant." And she told me that I was pregnant. And I was like, so then I really went and took a test and found out for sure I was pregnant.
Ah, interesting. So this runs not only with you but with your daughter as well.
Yes.
And so through your life, how has that developed within you and how have you used it?
Yeah, I think it gives me an awareness that there's more to what we're seeing, and to be more aware and cognitive about, what life really is or isn't. And they've given me a lot of instruction on like how to use the technology that God's given us to create and to live life and to have the life that we choose. One of the times that the Birdmen came to Shane, they told her, "Shane, be my guide, be my guide." And I always thought, I
Um,
didn't understand what that meant. And and she was only 3 or 4 years old. And I called my mentor at the time and I said, "What in the world does that mean?" And he talked about in the scripture how these angels are there for our bidding. And like
yeah.
we call them guides, but in fact, they're here to do our bidding by our word. They
Yes.
help us.
Yeah, that is very true. They are there when we call on them, and because we are, as I say to people, we're spiritual beings having a human experience, and therefore
Yeah.
we're here for a reason. So our words are power. We are power. So when we need that help, we have that power to call on that help, and that help does come to us. What is interesting in our short time of speaking, what has um, touched me is that you said on this last one that with the difficult time, and it seems, and this is why I asked you, were there things going on, and when you were young, your father was away a lot. I take it that, were you very close to your father?
Actually, I was
Did
really
you have
close.
that close connection?
I was probably more close to my grandfather because he had kind of stepped in as that role because my
Hmm.
dad was gone so
Oh,
much. But
mhm.
we are very close now, more more so than ever. But very, very close to my grandfather.
Yeah. Yeah, because as these things seem to be happening in times, as you said, when difficult times, when these birdmen came, and there were difficult times for you. So that love, that affection, and making themselves aware at times when you really needed that encouragement and then that connection. And
Yes.
I think this probably happens to quite a few of us, and we don't realize it.
Yeah, I just had
So
a
go ahead.
yeah, I mean, like I just had something happen here this last couple days ago that I had reached out to speak to a medium or a psychic, which isn't normally my path, but because last January I lost my grandmother and my niece and uh, my mother-in-law, who I've known since 17. And I mean, there was just several deaths that happened a year ago, January, and my body was remembering that this January, and I got really sick. You guys know I was sick about
Yes.
14 days, and it happened to
Yeah.
start the day of one of the deaths. And so I wanted to reach out to someone that some people kept recommending this lady over and over, and I was just like, I've always gone within,
Yes.
and I have
Yeah.
had a lot of luck to talk to people outside, and also
Yeah.
because I'm on the internet all over the place. Like, I don't know if it would help my belief system because they could just Google and go, "Oh, you're a writer, you're a naturopathic doctor, it's like it's already on the internet, so
Yeah.
it doesn't give me a lot of faith that someone could just tell me the same thing I already know, right? But I made the choice to go ahead and book the appointment, and we got messed up on the time zones. And so I was there waiting for her, but she had already been waiting for me, and it was this mix up on the time zones. And I asked her if we could reschedule, and she basically was like, "No, sorry, you didn't come on time." And so I apologized profusely, and I was like, "Hey, I didn't know you were in a different time zone. This is the time I had. I was actually early. I hope you extend some grace. I'm so sorry about your time,
Yeah.
and I hope that we find another time or whatever." And she just kept saying no, rebook, and she was going to keep the money. Well, I
Oh,
was sharing. I know. She said, "I'm not only a psychic and a medium, but I'm also a businesswoman. So no, you can rebook another
oh,
appointment." Yeah.
oh, very harsh.
After a few really mean emails that she sent to me, that was the final. But I won't even go into the other mean ones that she sent. But it's whatever.
Mm,
So I was upset and disappointed, and I talked to a friend of mine, and this lady was saying, "Well, I think you're so upset." I was having trouble letting it go, and she said, "I think you're upset because you opened your heart up to it, and you normally don't do things like this, and you had all this expectation, but also because you wanted closure on some of these people. And she said it's one thing to lose one person, but when you lose a lot in that short of time, it's almost like shock, and just give yourself permission to catch up, and it's okay. Well, Missy, I was sitting on the couch, and the whole time I'm talking to her, I keep looking behind my bookcase, and I keep seeing this black book. And I was like, what is that? And I'm listening to her, but I'm also like being drawn, almost like this book is calling me.
Yes. Yes.
And so I get up and follow that inner voice, get a ladder,
Yes.
climb up, pull this book out. I open it. And on the inside of the cover of the book, it says Bennett Crone and an address. It's my grandfather's Bible. It was a Bible.
Yes.
And then I find these papers inside, and the papers are all handwritten words, and by my grandmother, who I just lost, and who two of these people I wanted to talk to, right?
Yes.
And she has all these notes of things she's got to do for that day, and just notes that I don't understand. But in the very, very corner, if you turned it sideways, she had a little note.
I know it's hard.
That said Sharnael's Bible verses. And she had written out some Bible verses. Now, what's interesting is my grandmother actually went blind. So towards the end, the last few decades of her life, she wasn't writing. And some of the information that was on this letter referred to another lady, Eunice, who had passed in the 90s. So this letter, or these notes, were from the 90s. And I'm just now seeing them. And I looked up the last Bible verse that she had written on there. And it said, the Lord is near the brokenhearted.
Mm.
Those crushed in spirit. And so she's here like talking to me direct instead of this woman. And so I go in my bedroom, and my TV is on, and there's this thing bouncing around. We have in the States, it's called Direct TV, and it's a satellite. And so it's bouncing around. It says Direct TV, Direct TV. Well, my mentor always said, don't do psychics, always go direct. And so I was like thinking about that.
There's a message. There's a message here for you.
Yes. And so then I turned the TV on, and there is a congressman from Missouri standing on a podium talking about this plane crash that just happened in the States. And he's saying that he knew all the people on the plane because he would go back and forth on this plane. And he says in the camera, looking straight at me, he says, losing one is a lot, but when you lose a lot of people at once, that's a shock.
It's a shock.
And he said, and it's the same thing that my friend had just told me. Blue. And then he says, when I'm in a situation like this, I always like to pull out this scripture. And he pulls out of his paper, out of his pocket, and he opens it up, and it's the same scripture. God is near the brokenhearted, those crushed in spirit. And this all happened fast, instant. As soon as I asked, it was already in me the whole time direct. And I didn't need this at all.
No, we're in an age actually when it's time for us to reconnect to our source and reconnect directly rather than go to other people. I know some of us need it for direction, and there are a lot of psychics out there. They're very nice, and I've had one or two the program that use their power, but it's just part of a vehicle where we have it within us, and we need to exercise that and believe and work on that inner strength and that inner power, because as I said, we're coming to a time when we're supposed to connect directly to get all our answers.
Yes.
So, and You're absolutely right. When you lose one, it is a, oh, lovely little pussycat. When you lose one, it's heartache. But when you have so many, it is a shock to the system. And this is what has been going. And you recently lost your, a lovely pet, a lovely dog. So that's another shock because they are part of the family. So you've
Yes.
been going through quite a bit last year and having all these deaths. I think you said were they all in January or
Yes.
so many to get over. It must have been very, very difficult. And I believe you're still processing it as well because they were all loved ones that you've known throughout your life and now they've moved on. But saying that, you also know that in a way there isn't, it's not in a way, there is nothing, there's no such thing as death. We go from one existence to another and we just lose this shell that we need for this earth plane, and the
Yeah.
core of us is eternal. And so
Yeah.
wherever we go, we just take on the shell for what we need.
Yes.
But even saying that, it can be difficult to process, and that's part of our journey here on Earth. So, Chanel, you are a naturopathic nutritionist, and what I want to say, right, through your younger life, having these experiences with these angels and with these beings that are very tall, seeing Jesus for a young age, I think it was probably a natural thing going in to a naturopathic medicine. And what made you lean towards that career?
Yeah, actually, I've always did the Western type, doctor situation because my dad was military and that's kind of what their path is of, go every year and get on medicine if they tell you. But I got really sick. I did ministry for years and taught in churches and retreats and conference speaking, and we had television. We did television for 3 years, and um, I ended up getting really, really sick. And I spent about 7 years trying to get answers from that Western model. And all they would do is just throw pharmaceuticals at me. And then they would have side effects and more side effects and more pills. And so when I was introduced to a doctor who is an MD, a medical doctor, but he's also a naturopath and also a God-fearing man who is very spiritual and understands spiritual things, he introduced me to a different path. And then I kept having these dreams about going back to school to be a naturopath. And I was literally sitting on the plane contemplating it and saying, God, do you really want me to go back to school? Because I was then a single mom with 3 kids under 7 or 8, or 7, because I was 37. And I said, God, do you really want me to go back to school right now to be a naturopath? And I looked out of the window of the plane and on the tarmac, and there was this cone kind of board thing that gives direction for the tarmac of the planes. And it said ND, naturopath, a naturopathic doctor, ND, that away, and had an arrow in the direction I was going. And I was like, oh my God, okay. So
The
I
signs
went back.
were there showing you.
Yes. So I went back to school, and that's what I've been doing ever since.
Okay. And do you find, so how long have you been a naturopathic, doing naturopathic medicine?
I graduated with my doctorate in 2014, so this will be my 11th year.
Yeah. So how have you seen changes in the amount of people who are vying towards naturopathic medicines?
Oh
Because
God.
I'm getting it and I'm seeing it and I'm hearing from other people that I connect with
I think
that
a
there
lot,
is a shift.
yeah, a lot of people don't trust medical doctors anymore as much because of all the stuff that's gone on in the last 5 years. I think people are really over the healthcare system, and it's really set up as a sick care type thing. Really, they, there's not. I mean, I don't want to say, I don't want to throw every doctor out,
No.
because there are really good doctors as well, and I'm not anti surgeons or things that are required. I have
Yes.
much respect for those people who have spent their life helping people, and also if we can be preventative so we're not getting sick, and or maintaining our body in this temple of
Yes.
of technology, and do the things every day in good practice, then we won't get to those spots where we need anything. And if we do need something, if there's all kinds of different ways to go about it without the side effects.
I like the way you said it's not about really just curing the situation. We can avoid it, but saying that, I think it needs to be said that when we understand who we are and we're working from the point of the source and we are connected, we think differently, we see things differently, we act differently, and it is those things that keep us balanced so that we don't become sick, because we are energy, and it is an imbalance in our energy field, our spiritual energy field, because we're spiritual beings with a physical body having a human experience. And when that energy field becomes imbalanced, that's when we get the sickness.
That's right.
So we need to understand that spiritual side of who we are.
Yeah.
And in understanding that step by step, then realizing that our decisions and our way of thinking has a very strong influence on our life and what happens to us physically. Um,
Absolutely.
and having naturopathic in it, and it's knowing that the creator has put everything on this planet that we can use when we do create an imbalance, because we create the imbalance. um, Sometimes other things come in to shake us and make us do that, but with that connection we're guided to know what we can use to rebalance ourselves. So you found in the last 11 years since you've graduated that people are moving more and more towards naturopathic medicine. Do you have you recognized in any way what particular things really stand out in our imbalance? I mean, for instance, we're always talking about cancer, and are there particular things you find as a naturopathic MD that there are certain things that are very prevalent um, in what we're doing at present time?
Yeah, I mean, sugar is a big thing in the States, especially. I mean, almost everything you get at the store has sugar, unless people are eating real food, which I really strongly encourage, meat and vegetables, things like that. Oh, what was that? Can you hear me?
We we froze for a little bit. You said that in the States, sugar is a big thing at the moment,
Yes.
and you said something about meat and vegetables.
Yeah, if we eat whole food, then we're going to have a better, like real food. I mean, instead of all this processed stuff, then we're going to do better. But mold and parasites are something that's also kind of prevalent. I don't know how it is over there, but a lot of people are dealing with mold, parasite, limes, fungus, things like that.
Within their physical system.
Mm-hmm.
Um, can you give us some probably advice on how we, as you said, whole foods as opposed to processed foods, we should be eating more of? If it's going to be meat, we have proper meat, not processed, these
Yeah.
slices in the packet and all that.
Yes.
And if we're eating rice, we buy the rice and cook it rather than processed and all these quick things.
Yeah.
um, Are there, because of the way we're living in today's society, are, apart from those, are there certain things that we can do to help us to clear out those moles? Because we have these at the moment, unfortunately. But can you give us some advice on what we can do to help clean out anything that might be there that we
Yeah,
can use naturally?
liver cleanses are really good. If you haven't had a liver cleanse, make sure to do that. You could detox the parasites. You could, like I said, sugar feeds all of those things. So if you cut off the food supply to that, then you could starve them out and then get back your energy and your source, because those things are taking away from our healing, from our absorbing our nutrients, because
Mhm.
they're taking nutrients. A lot of people tend to be overweight if they have parasite or fungus because they're not even feeling nourished when they
Yeah,
do eat, because they're taking that away, and then our brain isn't getting nourished, our stomach isn't getting nourished, and then we still feel hungry. And a
yeah.
lot of times people continue to eat. So yeah, just killing all that and starving it out.
Okay, so less on the sugar, more on our whole foods, fruits, lots of fruits, vegetables, and it is said plenty of water.
Yes. Water, rest, being outside in nature, juicing, things like
Yeah,
that.
okay. I like the way you say being outside the nature, because I was speaking to somebody today and I was saying I don't like being in the concrete jungle. When I need, sometimes I need just to get outside under the sky, just get outside in the air where I can feel the energy. And as much as I live in London, which is, pretty hectic and polluted, but still it's outside where I can reconnect, and I can feel and sense things. And I think probably we need to do a lot more walking and just breathing.
Yes.
There's the breath
And the
techniques and so.
and the sun too. I mean, I went to school at University of London, so and I lived there as a kid as well. So I know there's not a lot of sun in London all the time, but when you can get it, get outside and get your feet in the grass, or go to the park, take your shoes off, when you can, and
Yeah.
walking, just being amongst the trees in the park. There's a lot of really help with that, a lot of support.
You said in the park, get your shoes off, get your socks off, and grounding. Can you
Yeah.
talk a little bit more on that to encourage people? Because I find there is a different feeling when you are on the earth.
Yeah, well, the earth has its own electrical belt, just like we
Yeah.
have an aura. The earth has it, trees have it, plants, animals have theirs. So when we take our shoes off, there is a connection electronically that we connect to that earth, and it brings us to the 7.86 megahertz, and really, really helps the body to heal. It balances your hormones. It just sends all the circuitry and the electronics that we are into a better, faster, more sharp pace.
Thank you for saying that, because um, I love it when I'm walking bare feet, um, not just on the grass, but even when we're by the sea, in the water, the energy as well. There's another thing there with the sea and bringing in that energy, which is extremely powerful, and people shouldn't take
Oh, it
that
is.
lightly. When you walk into that sea, say your prayers, do your affirmations, cleanse and heal. And it is to
Yeah,
be amongst nature and natural things. Okay,
absolutely.
Chanel, are there any things that you particularly would advise people to do with regards to grounding themselves, the cleaning themselves, connecting, that will help us to be more? more of ourselves, because when we do that, we become more natural and we can log in and be more of ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, all those things, exercise, good water, good food, good rest, sleeping well, grounding. I use essential oils too, which is a whole different ball game, especially if you are in concrete jungle, then you can use oils. And I'm very specific about what kind I use because I've tested like 30 companies and most of them aren't even real oils. They're just people trying to make a dollar calling it something, but it's a fragrance, it's synthetic. But if you can find a real oil, then the company that I work with will go past the blood barrier, meaning it goes into the blood and the brain, and it does ground from the inside out, and it does a lot of other things as well. But yeah, water, staying hydrated, and laughing, having fun, doing things
Yes.
that are creative and play to get your body out of fight or flight and into a more relaxed state. There's a
Yeah.
lot of science that backs up community, laughter, friends, having a good, if you have to schedule time to be with your friends or to play or to be alone and to
Yeah.
meditate. And, meditation is really good too. Nature is huge. And I agree with you. Water is awesome. Water can really, really help clear the biofield of anything that's stagnant. Um,
Yes. That's something that I'm pretty bad on. I have to admit that I have to remember, drink more water, drink more water, drink more water. And I like the way you said laughter, because one of my Marie Christine I interviewed, she's a laughter yoga leader,
oh,
and you see her on Facebook, and it's wonderful, because I know when I do laugh, and what I call a real belly laugh, it
yeah,
vibrates all the way through your body, and
yeah.
it is a healer, believe it or not. It does heal. So
Oh,
I
yeah.
do, watch comedy plays or something or another, but a good laughter does wonders for the body.
Yes.
Okay, Chanel, you've also written some books, and do you do courses?
I do. I have several courses on my website, drsharnael.com. I teach on muscle testing, outcome mapping. I have a course on a liver cleanse. I have one on keto and that kind of lifestyle. I have one that teaches about crystals with essential oils and the Bible and how all those interrelate on a frequency level. I have a muscle testing certification. But then I have all my 5 books there as well. I have my podcast is there. There's ways to connect with me if you want to do remote biofeedback and or soul audits. There's a lot of great free information. If you just go there, actually right now, you can plug in your email and you'll get a free download email sent back to you on how to clear trauma. And
Oh
that's a
my
gift.
gosh.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
how do people connect to that email? What is the email address?
It's a website. If you go to drsharnael.com, it's doctors DRSHARNAEL Sharnael, drsharnael.com. And
Yes.
there'll be a pop-up there, and you just put in your email and it'll automatically send you how to clear trauma out of your field and out of your body.
Lovely. On that same website, will they find your different books, the names of the books that you have? So if they
Yes,
go
ma'am.
to that website, drsharnael.com,
Yes,
you will
ma'am.
see your shop and everything that you're doing and everything that you presented. So,
Yes, ma'am.
Sharnael, thank you so much for sharing your journey and what you've done and how you've come about. And thank you for even creating those different books and things that we all can partake in if we need to. And as I said, we're all different. We need different things. So we need to keep our mind open and try things to help ourselves, because the power lies within us, and we can clean ourselves and we can heal ourselves. And we need people like Sharnael in naturopathic medicine and all these different genres to guide us so that we have the tools to make ourselves well and heal ourselves. So once again, Sharnael, thank you so much for being with us. And everybody, thank you for joining me this evening. Thank you very much. Bye for now.
Thank you. Bye-bye.